bust it. Shake and bake and pull it back.
Oh my God.
Let me show you something. Hold on and get some, boys.
That is why they gonna be. Inside information we're finally getting that I think will be announced at San Diego Comic-Con. Hit us with the
I mean, if you've been watching the Lords of the Long Box, I've been talking about Phase 4 for how long, and what they would do at San Diego Comic-Con, Hall H, drop that Fantastic Four logo.
Our man, the Black Knight, is telling us that indeed Peyton Reed, writer-director of Ant-Man, is in talks to write and direct the Fantastic Four reboot from Marvel Studios. And here's what's a lot of people don't know, if you're just speculating, that Peyton Reed, because I remember a few months ago, Peyton Reed said, I'd love to direct a Fantastic Four film. And the articles were like, it's one of those articles you see on clickbait sites where like somebody says, I would love to play this character. Of course you would. Everybody wants to play that character. Who wouldn't? Jesus But Christ. Peyton Reed has got deep connections already in the MCU. Ant-Man is probably going to come to an end, maybe after the second film, maybe the third film. They've been fun films. They've been making okay money, but Fantastic Four, that's the gem of the freaking Marvel Cinematic Universe. And here's the interesting thing. The new FF franchise will borrow heavily from three different runs. Of course, the Stan Lee Jack Kirby run. So you think of, all the characters that came, the Galactus, Silver Surfer, but also, right. And I've always talked about this, a John Byrne run that started on Fantastic Four 232 up to 282 would introduce you to storylines like the trial of Reed Richards, the second coming Galactus, Frankie Ray becomes a herald and sacrifices herself, Annihilus and the Negative Zone, those major stories. And the biggest one of that one is the trial of Reed Richards, right? He was put on trial for basically allowing Galactus to live when he could have killed him. And also, right. We just talked about this man last week and his epic storylines. Yeah. They will also be pulling from the Jonathan Hickman run of Fantastic Four, which I also love, which also brought about, I believe, the death of Johnny Storm, the Human Torch. By the way, one of the best death scenes in comics of all time. And Jonathan Hickman's run on Fantastic Four was truly cosmic.
Well, and I just bought the trade, so I'm going to be reading that one.
Oh, nice. Don't forget to read it twice because it's Jonathan Hickman.
Yeah,
so,
right. Three times.
I don't know if you have anything on this, Otto, but it's kind of obvious what the books are to get. Well, why don't you see what you got for us, since you fell on your face on Ghost Rider 6 Scarecrow.
100%. I'm sorry about that. I was so engrossed in it. I had to get to Swamp. I wanted to talk about Swamp Thing, and I just, that definitely laid a goose egg. But we have talked about this many times before, that the Fantastic Four Bronze Age is just ripe for the pickings as far as first appearances of characters. Now, I know we have also seen the prices skyrocket in FF 48 and 49, but there are other books that you can get. Well, obviously the first appearance of Black Panther is very pricey right now, but let's talk about other characters. Let's talk about maybe the first appearance of Gorgon. That was in the early FF movies, in the FF books. We also have the Molecule Man, who would be a very good villain. We also have, Annihilus. Submariner, right? That was big news.
FF number 4.
Right, absolutely. That would be huge news, too. That book is getting harder and harder to find, Fantastic Four, and it's getting very pricey, too. So be careful about that. You also have great storylines from, the Frightful Four and Medusa, first appearances like that. You also have Silver Surfer. Then when you get later on into the other books, you have all the heralds. You have Silver Surfer. Well, first appearance of Firelord, that was in a Thor comics, but remember that. The first appearance of Terex, if I'm saying
FF211.
FF211.
Terex the Tamer,
now.
FF211.
Terex the Tamer, man. He destroyed the Baxter Building with one swoop of that blade. So, those are books that you should be looking after. So that run is very interesting. And going back to the trial of Reed Richards, that would be a great trilogy movie. If they somehow brought that in and did that over 3 movies over, maybe a 6 to 7 hour period, that would be really, really interesting, because you could bring Galactus into it and then you could put him on trial. And that was when John Byrne was actually writing and drawing that story at the same time.
The John Byrne run starts at issue 232, one of my favorite all-time, top 5 runs of all time. Also, Frankie Ray as the first Herald, I believe is FF 244 or 245. You also have, when was Gladiators' first appearance? I'm trying to remember. Gladiator, the Shariar.
He was, the first appearance was in an X-Men book, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and also
that was 250. That was when that was a great battle between Thing and him, and the buildings crumbled. That was just another. And the Skrulls were involved in that book too, so don't forget that because they cloned up as the X-Men. So that was a great run.
FF history is just rife with just first appearances, storylines, and then if you think about the Hickman run, that's basically where they bring part of Annihilus and also the death of Johnny Storm. So right around issues like 600, but there's tons of variants around there too. Justin, what are we looking at? Some of the bigger books or some of the smaller books, price wise, or movement on them?
I mean, really anything between FF 1 through 10, I mean, those are almost becoming untouchable books because of all the different first appearances, just like any other, X-Men, Spider-Man, all of them, they have those first appearances. So like you said, I mean, you got Namor in there, you get the Doom, you got Watchers in there, Grey Ghost. So, right. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. So anything in there is, I mean, I had grades all over the place, but you're looking at least minimum, like almost $1,000, even on like VG pluses and fines. So, it's tough to get a book, and now's the time because even though Disney has it, they said they're coming at some point, but now's the time to pick up these first appearances because the FF books are only getting older and older.
Guys, I got breaking information from our man, the Black Knight. A lot of Jonathan Hickman is going to be used for Phase 4 and 5.
I'm not surprised.
More details coming later this week, but literally, I'm talking with him right now. He's watching the show. He said a lot of Hickman is going to be in Phase 4 and 5. If you've been paying attention, Hickman did a lot of Avenger stuff and a lot of Fantastic Four stuff. Basically, Hickman did a lot of cosmic stuff. Yeah. If you think about where Phase 4 and 5 are going with the cosmic universe, Hickman is your man. Of course, Hickman is also rebooting X-Men right now too.
Right. So that would bring in, that Annihilus book. So Gary, I know you're watching this, Gary. Can you save some of those books for everybody else? I mean, the guy's like 10 copies. I mean, save some for other people, for God's sake.
Gary, pay attention to him.
Yeah.
All right, Ryan, what's next?
Speaking of books to look out for, it sounds like Hercules is set to make his debut in the MCU in number 4.
So there will be a Thor sequel, Thor 4, and they're going to have to change that title because Thor 4 does not roll off the tongue. But it's been speculated already. People have been saying it's got to be Hercules. Well, I'm getting confirmation from our man, the Black Knight, that Hercules will be in Thor 4. And they need to bring in more of these powerful characters. And Hercules has been around. I just read the run of Avengers where Hercules is prominent in it, where they killed out Olympus. Help me out. What was the name of the Avengers Long Road Home? I believe was the run. And Hercules plays great run by the Maxi series, by the way. Avengers No Road Home. Hercules is prominently set in that book, and they kind of rebooted his persona. He's always been kind of this goofy kind of character, but now they seem to make him a bit more serious. And he got a new costume at the end of it. So no more sitting around in his underwear or whatever the hell he was with his weird
loincloth.
With that palette.
Otto, for those who don't know, what's his history and what's his first appearance?
Well, you want to get Journey into Mystery Annual number 1. You want to get that. That's his first appearance. That's a very iconic cover with both of them going at it. And, Hercules has gone through many different phases. And I think for the Asgardians in his storyline, he was kind of like the second fiddle to Thor. And he was always kind of like, I want to say the stepchild because we're not talking
they
like
that. They are the Olympians. That they pick the Asgardians as Odin's the Allfather, and Zeus. Zeus was always considered in the pantheon of gods of Marvel Comics, but he was never as powerful as Odin, the Allfather.
Right. So definitely the backstory is the two of them just don't get along, and they just have to figure it out, and they've got to get it. But that is a great cover right there. That's a square bound book, you guys. So that's going to be hard to find in higher grades. But that's just a fantastic cover done by Jack Kirby. And what's interesting too is during the 80s, late 70s and early 80s, when I was really buying it, Hercules had his own little miniseries. He had like one of those 1 through 4 miniseries. He was in the Avengers. He was like their strongman. So it's interesting who's going to play.
Isn't
Hercules.
He part of like the Champions or something like that?
He was. That was a great,
Champions,
weird little book, man. Hercules. I believe it was Hercules, Angel.
Yep. No, it wasn't
Black Widow.
Yeah. God, the Champions was a good story. I think that was George Perez.
They even had that what was that when it was Incredible Hulk and then it became Incredible Hercules, right?
Yeah.
The Marvel run.
Well, remember he was paired up with Amadeus Cho for a while, and then Amadeus Cho kind of went on. He got so popular, became the Hulk, and now he's in the Champions, kind of full circle, right? But what are we looking at, Justin, as far as prices on these Hercules books?
For a Jim Annual number 1, I mean this book is tough to find. 9.0 last sale this year was for $1,280.
Good Lord!
An 8.5 went for 576, and this
See, that's
is
the
funny.
kind of grade I would be into that book for.
So check this out: an 8.5 went for 576, but an 8.0 went for $840.
Really?
So that's insane.
There's some of those weird things on GPA
It's tough
where
to
somebody overpraised for something because they wanted it so bad, right? If they were to
Right.
wait. So, like I always, but you know what? I always say, man, if you're going to get a hero book, it's always a great investment. You know what I mean? Because especially if they're going to be in the movies, right? If you spec on TV shows, be careful. It can be a quick flip. But, the long haul, the long game, the long investment is heroes in the movies, especially the big two, DC and Marvel, right? The exception to that would be Umbrella Academy and Netflix, because that show was so awesome that those books are flying off the shelves, or literally, figuratively. I don't think they're shelves anymore, but you know what I mean.
Rex.
But that Hercules is pretty big, man. It'd be so interesting to see who they cast for it, because you got to think it's got to be a big kind of buff dude, right? I mean, not like The Rock, because The Rock's playing Namor. But anyway, what's next?